We were like 5 days out after like being at sea for 3 months. Our friends and family had flown in to meet us, and we hit the most almighty storm. Like we thought we had like 70 knots of wind from the direction we wanted to go, and we drifted the wrong way for about 3 days. So I'm Royle. My mission and purpose in life right now is to demonstrate solutions for us people to live in greater harmony with the natural world. So I grew up in Preston in Lancashire, went to school in Blackpool, and as a kid I had an autoimmune issue, and I spent a lot of time between my teenage years in and out of a wheelchair. One of the kind of things that I could do when I was having problems walking was to go sailing, because there you're kind of, you know, you've got your whole little world around you, and it's really exhilarating, but you don't have to move your legs so often. Loved sailing for the spirit of the adventure, so always took on the opportunity that would take me into kind of building my kind of seamanship skills. So that then led me to kind of sail up to the Arctic and the Antarctic, cross oceans, and then eventually through into kind of ocean racing. I was really fortunate to become a sponsored ocean racing sailor, and then that enabled me to do kind of two-handed ocean racing with a French lady, Alexa, and her and I did a kind of famous race called the Transat Jacques Vabre, where we sailed from France to Brazil. Spent some time sailing, at the time, some of the fastest boats and with the best people, all the way to kind of fully crewed, and transatlantic was the main kind of stomping ground. And also because I was really driven to kind of improve my skills, I set my heart on working in the Southern Ocean, the most kind of challenging environment to live in. And spent some time visiting the Antarctic Peninsula and travelling down there, seeing if we could get further and further south in each season. And it was really down there that I started to appreciate our human relationship with the environment. I mean, being a sailor teaches you that, because every day you're responsive to whatever Mother Nature throws at you. You learn to kind of be really in tune with nature. But when I was sailing in the Southern Ocean, it was really shocking to see fishing boats like hoovering up krill in areas that you don't really expect anyone has ever been in, let alone kind of like factory fishing and factory consuming of nature in these really wild and unpredictable environments. We take scientists to areas to do research, and seeing in the Antarctic like colonies of penguins move as the ice moved, and seeing plastics when you'd be like, you think you're the only person to have ever been on a beach, and then you kind of see the plastic, yet you've sailed like 6 weeks to get to this place. So you're kind of like, wait a second, how is this man-made product ended up here when the nearest city is 1,000 miles away? It was quite early on in the project, so I joined at the point when David de Rothschild had this fantastic idea to raise awareness of the garbage patch, this island of plastic, to go and visit it. And I moved to San Francisco, and the raft was being built in Pier 39.5, and went to visit the boat for the first time, and the boat was like a pile of 12,000 Coke bottles, 2-litre Coke bottles, and kind of a crazy group of guys that were like, okay, how do we build a boat out of these bottles that is going to be structurally sound enough to carry 5 lives across the Pacific Ocean? And it was just this incredible adventure from that moment until the point we set sail, which was probably over a year later. And during that kind of land-based adventure, we spent a long time kind of looking into the material solutions to plastic pollution. So not just kind of building a boat out of waste, it's quite negative, but building a boat to communicate the solution, which is to make sure that product is built for multiple lives. So with these kind of fundamental kind of cradle to cradle design principles, we built a raft which actually it was more like a boat at the end, although it did sail like a raft. It looked a bit like a Polynesian sailing boat. It was 60 foot long, about 23 foot wide, and we all lived in this geodesic dome, which is like Buckminster Fuller philosophy of the strongest structure for the best use of space. So we all hot bunked, bearing in mind I was the only woman, and I was the captain, or the skipper we call it. And we set off thinking maybe it would take 6 weeks, maybe we thought a bit more. And it took 3 and a bit months. It was like, we kind of side crabbed across the Pacific. And I think kind of my racing career was over because we got a world record for the slowest Pacific crossing on a boat made out of plastic bottles. It was just the most incredible adventure. All of it, the designing the boat, the being at sea with 5 incredible people, and living in close proximity for 3 months under really kind of sometimes quite hard environments. The boat was like, if you didn't concentrate on the helm, then the boat would kind of just turn around and around and around. So that was quite annoying and took a lot of patience. It's funny because by the time you're about to set sail on a journey, you're just so excited to slip those lines and get away, because to that point, you've been meticulously planning, knowing that from the moment you leave, you're completely on your own. We were well organised and we'd built the boat ourselves. So although there was quite a few people out there telling us we were going to die and this is a crazy idea, we were going to leave trails of bottles in our wake, we were pretty confident we'd built a strong boat. We left a pier in Sausalito, opposite San Francisco, and it was just wonderful. I can actually picture it now. The pier was just sinking because there were so many people that were waving us goodbye, because the boat had been built by so many people. We sailed underneath the Golden Gate Bridge, and then I do remember this moment of like, oh right, okay, it's just the 6 of us, like when are we next going to see land? And some of my friends, crew, had not spent many nights at sea before, and I just remember the sea being really confused outside the Golden Gate Bridge and it being really wet, and like, we'd packed the boat full of things, so we're like, stow everything away. And it was kind of, mixed emotions of kind of like, wow, okay, now we're really off. But what we didn't know at the time was that actually the next time we would see land would be 46 days later. So it was a long time to be at sea for the first leg. You go from a day where nothing happens, and then you go from, into days where you've got an immense amount of wind or bad sea state or something's broken and you're up all night. And so it's a constant kind of roller coaster. And I think working at sea makes you kind of really kind of robust in life, because, you learn that actually working with a team to keep each other alive. I think it explains a lot of my drive and my focus now in life. There were immense highs, like being in remote Pacific with the stars, like, wow, you don't get to experience that night sky. And then there were real challenges, like on the way into Sydney, for example, we were like 5 days out after like being at sea for 3 months. Our friends and family had flown in to meet us, and we hit the most almighty storm. Like we had like 70 knots of wind from the direction we wanted to go, and we drifted the wrong way for about 3 days. And it was really scary. The boat was tired at that stage. We had the head sail stuck up. My friend David had to go up the mast in this middle of, everything happens in the dark, right? Nothing ever happens when you've just woken up and it's light. It's like in the dark when you're ready for a sleep. And we spent all night awake trying to get all the sails down and get ourselves safe. And we kind of basically tied ourselves to the boat for 3 days, going the wrong direction when we just wanted to be cuddling our families at that stage. So that was challenging, and also beautiful to experience that with other people and to come out the other end of it. And then, then we arrived in Sydney, which was really unexpected. Like, we were people that had lived in a really closed community for so long, and we had like press helicopters in the sky. We're like, what? Where are these guys come from? And then we kind of went into the Sydney, the Maritime Museum. And again, the pontoon was just full of people and press. And it was like, wow, as everyone's like, follows. And it was just, you know, an incredible storytelling platform at a time when it was really important to raise awareness, to connect ourselves with how our material choices on land are kind of impacting the health of our life support system, Mother Nature. So that was fantastic. But in all of that conversation, people saying, well, what do we do? Like, you've taught us that actually, you know, we're buying things and products that's ending up in the ocean, and that's impacting the health of the ocean and the health of sea creatures. But what do we do about it? And, you know, and I was like a sailor, and I didn't know. And I was like, we just use less plastic. Well, I was thinking, well, that's not going to help. You know, it's like being challenged with that, having raised all that noise, like, how do we support people to act? And that then took me back to university to do a master's in environmental science, and kind of shifted my career to work in ocean policy and solutions. Yeah. So having explored the ocean and found plastic everywhere we went, I started to wonder whether plastic would also be inside our bodies, as we are part of nature. Many of us care about ocean health, but more people care about our health and their children's health. So if we found plastic particles building up in our bodies, then it's likely we would be able to provide more urgency for businesses and governments to reduce the amount of plastic being produced and wrapping up our everyday life. And we have now found plastic particles in 3 out of 4 of the blood samples that we're testing. Plastic should not be in our bodies. We didn't want it to be there, and it can't be a good thing. And we know from kind of the lab tests that, you know, plastic reduces the effectiveness of our immune system. Yet we know that plastic production is on track to double, and there's 4 times more ocean plastic predicted by 2030. So we know a lot, right? And now we're trying to piece all of this together to really provide the evidence that, you know, plastic is harmful to our health, and the only way to reduce that is to reduce our exposure to everyday plastics. When I'm thinking about courage from a personal perspective, I suppose I feel like I always want to have different and varied experiences and kind of push the envelope of my capabilities in those experiences. So to do that, then I suppose it starts kind of with your mental and emotional well-being, and having the courage to understand what that is and what that means and how you develop that. And we're learning a lot more now about mental health and well-being, and I think that actually takes a huge amount of courage to go into and take apart. If you're someone that kind of likes to test the boundaries of courage and to do that with other people, then you're trying to visualize what that means and what might happen in these courageous situations, so that you are equipped and you can support your crew to feel safe and supported. Because obviously when you're being courageous in any way, I suppose there's an element of risk, right? So to live courageously requires a kind of investment in understanding and maintaining and enhancing your emotional and your physical well-being, and kind of visualizing the courageous situation and what might or might not happen, so that you are, you know, prepared, and you can then kind of calmly support the people that are around you.